Mine's fine. I am not having any problems. Island is having problems.
Forced all my forced password reset right at the beginning of the meeting, that's all. Difficult, but it was just a pain. Well, why would it decide just before the meeting?
Oh, that's how it operates. Yeah, yeah. If you hit it twice, it locks you out.
It's just lagging. Yes, we're good.
Go ahead and call this meeting to order, August sixth, 2024. Apologize for the delay. We had a few technical difficulties this morning. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum present this morning with all 5 commissioners in attendance. Commissioners, we do have a amendment for the agenda this morning. Let's go after the commissioner comments and I guess the first action presentation item. If we could add resolution 2408 CC02, which is a resolution to honor the memory of Richard Haskell, former sheriff of Sweetwater County. And with that, if there's no other questions or corrections, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards,
move to approve the agenda as amended.
do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. First item under tab A this morning, there are 3 budget amendments. The first being resolution 2507 CL01 to appropriate funds received from outside sources for the road and bridge fiscal year 24-25 operating budget. With us this morning is accounting specialist Rebecca Romero. And good morning.
Good morning. Yes, so this budget amendment will increase the road and bridge revenue account for the unanticipated funding received from an outside source. These funds will be allocated to a specific project, County Road 1. And so in addition, we will be increasing the operating budget for road and bridge as well.
Very good. Thanks, Rebecca. Any questions on this resolution, commissioners? Hearing none, we do need to open this up for a public hearing. At this time, if there's anyone online or in the audience that would like to speak to this resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve resolution 25-07-CL-01.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter? Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Discussion on the resolution. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 2 under tab A this morning is resolution 2507 CL02 to transfer budget appropriations within the fiscal year 25 general fund budget. And we'll hand it back to Rebecca.
Yes, this amendment will move $11,000 from the sheriff's operating budget into the detention center capital budget. There are some small equipment purchases that they need to make, and it does not qualify under operating.
Very good. Questions on this resolution, commissioners? If not, we'll open up this one for a public hearing. If there's anyone online or in the audience who would like to speak to this resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve resolution 25-07-CL-02.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. And the last item under tab A for the public hearing is resolution 2507 CL03, a budget amendment to decrease the fiscal year 25 appropriation to the District Board of Health. And we'll hand it back to Rebecca.
Yes, this amendment will decrease the fiscal year 25 funding for the Board of Health, which will put them in or spend down their cash on hand, which was agreed upon last year. So that'll spend them down to 120 days.
Yeah, just a little bit of confusion on, well, it was submitted properly. I think it was just a mistake on our part as far as how it was entered, so. Any questions on this resolution, Commissioners? Thanks to Kim for catching it. We overspent and she did say something where most people probably wouldn't say anything and just take it and run. So thanks for your catch on that, Kim. This time we'll open it up for a public hearing. If there's anyone online or in the audience that would like to speak to this resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr.
Chair,
Commissioner Jones.
move to approve resolution 25-07-CL-03.
You have a motion to approve by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Yes, I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Kim. And thank you. Appreciate it, Rebecca. Moving right along in the agenda, Commissioners, this will bring us to the county resident comments and concerns portion. If there's anyone online or in the audience that would like to address the governing body on any issues, now would be the appropriate time. Morning, Mr. Davis.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have no bad news today. This is just a procedural thing. The Interstate Irrigation and Reservoir Irrigation District down in McKinnon has submitted their annual budget to Judge Robinson, and it was approved. And part of that process legally is for me to let you know that they're going to levy $54,460 against themselves to help pay for irrigation improvements down in the McKinnon area. They've been doing this for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. And the way this process works is they have to submit it to the district court. The district court approves the budget. And we found out last year, I, as the assessor, need to come in front of you and let you know that this process has been completed and that we will be adding that $54,000 to the tax bills. We'll work with the treasurer's office to get that assessment put on there. So those people can be taxed for that improvement that they I think they went to the Department of Agriculture to get the grant, and this is the payback for that. But this is just a procedural thing to let you know that we did fulfill our obligation and let you know that this was approved at the district court level.
Very good. Any questions, Commissioners? Thanks for the information.
You're welcome.
Appreciate them. And thanks for the good news.
No bad news.
Still under county resident comments and concerns. If there's anyone else that would like to address the governing body? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda, and this will move us right along into tab B, Commissioners. Under tab B is the consent agenda with 6 items before you this morning. First being the approval of the July 11th, 2024 minutes, the approval of the July 16th, 2024 minutes, the approval of the county vouchers, warrants, expenditure approval listing, and commissioners report, the approval of bonds, approval of monthly reports, and a request to restaff a vacant position in the clerk of district court's office. Is there any request to remove any items off of the consent agenda, Commissioners? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion?
Thank you, Clerk Lane, for spelling out expenditures approval listing. Now we know what EALs are.
We do have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous. This will move us right along into commissioner comments. Commissioner Richards, the floor is yours.
Moment here. We're ahead of schedule, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's been a few weeks since we've all been together, but my comments shouldn't take too long. In the days after our last meeting, I kept myself busy at the final days of the National High School Finals Rodeo. It was a fantastic event with almost 1,900 young athletes from around the world competing. Team Wyoming landed in 4th place out of the 40 teams attending, so I'd like to congratulate them on a great performance. On the 23rd, I attended the Air Quality Advisory Board meeting where we recommended the adoption of some new air quality regulations that will help Wyoming keep its regulatory primacy over air quality in the state. The brunt of the change was limiting the amount of methane that producers could release into the atmosphere, which has two benefits. One, it will reduce air pollution, but second, it will conserve Wyoming's mineral resources and make our producers of those resources more effective. Later that night, I attended the Fair Board meeting and got updates on the events that are rounding out the year. They continue to be exceptionally busy, and I'm always amazed at what they're able to accomplish with the limited resources they have. They continue to work on their master plan and should be putting some dollar amounts on the different options soon for the public to see. On the 24th, I had surgery on my sinuses, so I spent the next week in bed recovering. It seems to have been successful, and I can already breathe better than I have in years, so we'll call it a win. I hope you'll forgive my sniffling in the meantime. It's not quite there yet. That brings us to last week in the Sweetwater County Fair. Once again, Candy, Erica, Tamara, Drew, and the entire staff knocked it out of the park. I want to thank them, Fair Board Chairman Bob Spicer, as well as the rest of the Fair Board for their vision and dedication they show year after year in putting together what is truly Wyoming's big show. Final gates are not available yet this morning. After the fair, the staff out there immediately flipped the facility over to accommodate the Royal Crown, which is going on right now, and many of them took a well-deserved day off. So we don't have the numbers yet. I'm guessing we're up about 5%. I think it's an increased gate over previous years. On the 2nd, I attended the Federal Partners meeting at the Rock Springs Chamber. One particular highlight of the meeting was that Rock Springs Field Manager Kimberly Foster said the publication of the final EIS for the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan is imminent. There will be a cooperator meeting tomorrow, and the final plan will drop soon after, triggering a 30-day protest period and a 60-day governor's consistency review. When asked how we were going to like the FEIS, after a brief pause, Ms. Foster said that she believed that we will be happy with the outcome. I think she said there were about 30,000 total comments, with about 4,000 of those deemed to be substantive. And she said that they took each of those substantive comments into account in their final rulemaking. I guess we'll find out in the coming days or weeks what that means. I hold out hope, but not much. I think anything was better than their draft plan, but I'm concerned that what we get is not going to be near what we hope for. Eric will attend that meeting on our behalf, and I'm sure some of you have plans to do so as well. Sadly, that meeting also intersects with the funeral of my good friend, former Sheriff Rich Haskell. Rich has been a big part of my life since I was a teenager. When his son Jason and I were friends, he was larger than life, had a huge heart, and was always there for you when you needed him. My heart goes out to his wonderful wife, Doris, his many children, and all of his extended family and friends. Rich, you will be sorely missed. Rest in peace, big guy. Going forward, I have a planning and zoning meeting and a WCCA conference call on the 14th. I'll be on KREO with Johnny K on the morning of the 19th with the library board meeting later that night. And then circling back on election day to see y'all back here on the 20th. Speaking of Election Day, August 20th is just 2 weeks away. I encourage everyone to be educated in their choices and to be thoughtful in the votes you cast. Elections have consequences, and I know it's a little oversold, but every new election really is the most important election of our lifetime. You can vote on Election Day, or you can go down the hall here to the clerk's office any day before that and cast your ballot early just in case something comes up and and keeps you from the polls on election day. Tonight is the second day of the Republican Party's primary debates at the Broadway in Rock Springs. I encourage everyone to go see the candidates for themselves. And the Rock Springs Chamber will also host their Eat, Meet, and Greet on Thursday for yet another chance to meet the candidates and get a little free food while you're there. I want to assure you that Wyoming has some of the most secure elections in the free world. And when I go cast my ballot this afternoon, I will do it confidently, knowing that it will be counted and that it will count. Mr. Chairman, I think that's all I have for you today. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Glad to hear surgery went well and you can finally breathe. Any questions for Commissioner Richards' report? If not, Commissioner Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On July 17th, I attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County Quality Committee meeting. Had a variety of improvements in quality that were discussed. One of the highlights was the final word that the hospital moved from a 3-star rating to a 4-star rating. So congratulations to everyone working at the hospital for this achievement. And actually, congratulations to Sweetwater County residents for the ability to receive such great care. On July 18th, I attended the Joint Powers Telecom Board meeting. Topics discussed were approval of the FY25 budget and some internet rate changes. For the next several days, I actually had time to visit with folks around the county and hear their thoughts. I've really appreciated the conversations and the honesty of those conversations. On the 27th, I was in the Red Desert Roundup Parade. It was great to have all the help from my parade crews. Couldn't do it without them. And of course, see everybody who came out to enjoy the parade. I don't know how anybody can't like a parade. Every kid's happy and all the adults seem to be smiling and happy too. So it was a great parade and they did a good job putting it on. Might have been 1 or 2 kids there with a sugar high. I'm not sure. On July 30th, 31st, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I had a booth at Wyoming's Big Show. Once again, I want to thank people for coming out and spending some time talking with me. I really enjoyed the conversations. And as Commissioner Richards mentioned, hats off to Candy and her staff for pulling off another incredible week at the fair. Every year it gets bigger and better. I don't know how they do it, but they do. Our fair is a bargain if you consider the concerts included, and there's always entertainment for everyone. On the 31st, I attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County Finance and Audit meeting. One of the main topics covered was the collections project that's been underway since last fall. Lots of improvements have been made, which has positively affects the bottom line at the hospital. So some great news there. On August 5th, I attended a meeting with the Bridger Teton National Forest. I've been asked to be on a working group representing motorized recreation for the land use for the Bridger Teton. They're going through something very similar to what the BLM is in the process of now. So it was great to have the ability to sit down with Forest Service yesterday and have a very open, frank conversation and have them listen to a variety of people. We had folks from around the BT, from Jackson to Alpine, obviously myself, Du Bois, Riverton, Lander areas. So it was a well-rounded group and a great meeting, and I hope a great start to having a word and an opinion listened to in that plan. I will be attending the meeting with BLM to hear the latest on the RMP tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope the news is as good as we're told, and I, of course, will be at the debates tonight. I encourage everybody to come out and listen and ask us some questions. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Jones's report?
I'll save them for tonight.
Well said. Looks like I'm up next here. On the 19th, I attended an opioid listening group at Southwest Counseling that was put on for different stakeholders throughout the community. The goal is to more or less put together a SWOT analysis to enhance statewide efforts in addressing opioid misuse and improving health outcomes to assist WISAC, the Wyoming Survey and Analysis Center, which is a function of the University of Wyoming who works closely with the Wyoming Department of Health. We were able to listen to different perspectives from law enforcement to healthcare, government, and individuals who have dealt with the different opioid misuse. It's a very real issue, and those conversations continue to highlight the need for prevention and adequate staffing and resources. So I appreciated the education there. On the 24th, I attended the regular Southwest Counseling monthly meeting. They're in the process of updating job descriptions and developing a wage band and salary structure for their organization. They did go ahead and approve the 3% cost of living adjustment that they had tabled at the month prior's meeting. They've also applied for an additional ARPA funding grant through the Department of Health, which, if awarded, would add 2 to 3 residential beds for opioid response. There's roughly $775,000 available, and they've applied for about a third of that. The Behavioral Health Division, through the Wyoming Department of Health, will be making an on-site visit on August 13th to review their residential program, which I plan to attend along with a few of their board members. And Rich Fisher turned in his resignation just before the board meeting, so unfortunately, we have another vacancy to fill on the Mental Health Board. Rich was a good fit and brought a level head with a strong law enforcement background, which really helped with many of the different conversations and goals the board continues to work on. I want to thank Rich for his dedication and willingness to serve. He will certainly be tough to replace. The District Board of Health did not meet last month, so I'll look forward to catching up with them at the end of this month. I too attended the Wyoming's Big Show, and as always, wanted to commend Candy and her staff along with the Events Complex Fair Board for another job well done. Those crews worked their tails off out there, and as Commissioner Richards pointed out, they transitioned rather quickly from National High School Finals to Red Desert to Fair, and now it sounds like the Royal Crown. So I'm not sure how they do it, but they do it well, and I certainly appreciate those efforts and continue to hear more and more about the tremendous fireworks show on Friday and Saturday nights, just like we heard last year. So thanks to those individuals for all their great work and hospitality. I did hear from the University of Wyoming Extension Office late last week, and it sounds like both parties are on board to have a workshop here in the chambers on the 23rd. So we'll see where that shakes out here in a couple of weeks. I will also be attending the cooperator meeting with the BLM to hear the results of the RMP, and I'm hopeful that that'll be good for the future of Sweetwater. Today, we do have the appreciation barbecue here at noon at the courthouse in the clerk's parking lot. Appreciate Treasurer Cowan putting that together. And with that, that pretty well concludes my report. I'd stand for any questions, commissioners. Not Commissioner Slaughter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 17th, I traveled to Lyman for the monthly CLG meeting. Danielle Betancourt gave reports on several topics of interest. Rocky Mountain Power was having IRP meetings on the 17th and 18th. PSC hearings on the IRP are tentatively scheduled for December. The Moxa Carbon Storage Proposed Sequestration Project is out for an EA with a comment deadline of July 30th. So that has just recently passed. Cooperating agency comments on Project West Soda LLC. The right-of-way application went out on June 25th. The Pacific Trona Dry Creek Trona Mine Project is still in the internal review process, and a DEIS was scheduled for release in July of 2024. That's actually going to be released, I believe, at the end of the week this week. A Rock Springs RMP cooperating agency meeting was scheduled for July 31st, but the BLM rescheduled it for August 7th. The Wild Horse Gathering will begin on August 15th with the intent to gather 500 horses in the White Mountain HMA. There's still a plan in place to gather 5,000 horses over a 3-year period in the Great Divide Basin, Salt Wells Creek, and Adobe Town HMAs. The Flaming Gorge National Recreation Plan revision has a draft EA out with a 30-day comment period. The CLG submitted comments on July 5th. That night, I attended the School District Number 1 board meeting. The board presented information on the new Rock Springs High School project. It was a general overview and gave information that I had not previously been aware of. It will be a great addition and is a very necessary improvement to our community. Thanks to our legislators and our legislature for approving that. On the 25th, I spent the morning in my office catching up on email and reviewing items that are on the horizon. It's amazing how many email messages we receive on such a wide variety of topics. On the 30th, I picked up a copy of the packet for the Golden Hour Senior Center board meeting that was held that afternoon. I was unable to attend the meeting due to a conflict at the fair that day. I also spoke with Director Marcia Driggs, and there were no major issues that she felt we needed to take action with. Marielle and I attended the fair that night, had a great time. It was a great night for the opening of the fair, and everything we saw seemed to operate very smoothly. Shout out to Candy and her staff. As busy as they've been over the prior couple of weeks, things look great for the fair. On the 2nd, I made the loop out to Manila and around through County Road 1 to see the progress that has been made on the frost heave project. Project seems to be going well, and the areas that have been improved make a great difference. There are still a few areas that need work, and Gina is aware of them and will be addressing them this week. The project should be finished by the end of next week. On the 5th, I spent the morning putting information for the audit of the Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board together. Administrative Assistant Volsick had been preparing the information and received a request for information that had been addressed prior to her hiring. I was able to find most of the requested information and delivered it to her. We will continue gathering any information requested by the auditor. We also received the July distribution of sales tax. It was $1,548,020.65. Once again, well ahead of our projection of $1.4 million per month. Last night, I attended the debate sponsored by the Sweetwater County Republican Party. Johnny Kay once again served as moderator. These forum-style debates are an important tool for allowing voters to see their candidates in action. I thought it was informative and helped people provide information to help voters make informed choices. I also intend to attend the debates tonight, once again showcasing legislators and finishing with the county commission candidates. Tomorrow morning, I intend to attend the cooperatives meeting for the release of the Rock Springs RMP. It should prove very interesting. Mr. Chairman, we also received the Public Works Director's report. I would read it if that meets with your approval. Public Works Department, August 6th, 2024. Buildings, Sweetwater County Library renovations and the Southwest Counseling AARP projects are being advertised for bid. We will await the bid results at the end of the month. The facilities crew has 4 remaining windows to replace at the museum. Most of the outside paint areas have been prepped, and once it is a bit cooler, we will finish the painting on the outside of the building. We are still waiting on a consensus regarding the remodel of the additional bathroom at the Sweetwater County Youth Home. We had a kickoff meeting with Grotehouse Construction regarding the Public Works Combined Facility Project. This meeting was to make sure everyone was on the same page regarding these existing plans, possible substitution, and scheduling so that they could start working on the GMP. We are now scheduled to have the GMP negotiated and in hand during the last BOCC meeting in September. The GMP will be presented to the board at that meeting. We had a meeting on the Detention Center RTU AHU project, and we discussed the external makeup air temperatures and what is needed for the new building codes. Based on this new information, the consultant will be specifying different RTUs than what is currently installed on the building. These units should also improve efficiency. The maintenance crew handled 103 work order requests in July. Road and Bridge finished the CMAC and dust control projects last week. They placed magnesium chloride on approximately 142 miles of roadway with a total of 5,088 tons of magnesium chloride applied. Road and Bridge trucks and rental trucks hauled base material to CR number 20, Lumen Road, to try and build the surface up in the first 3 miles of this roadway. This is needed so the surface can withstand the increased traffic loading. In the last month, these crews, hauled approximately 8,050 tons of material from the quarry in Rollins to County Road 20. Crews started blade patching and hand patching areas on County Road number 1, McKinnon Roadway on Monday, August 5th. This will take approximately 2 weeks depending upon the availability of the hot plant. We completed a test section of the asphalt removal on County Road number 19, Bitter Creek Road South, and blended it with the existing material using a dozer and a blade. The first 6.8 miles of this roadway was paved back in the 1970s and is potholed and raveled. The test section went well, and we will allow the oil field traffic to use this section of roadway for a couple of weeks before making final decisions on turning the remainder of the 6.8 miles of roadway back into treated dirt road. Crews are catching up on repairing and cleaning culverts and cattle guards throughout the county, and roadside mowing is still ongoing. Engineering Department, the 2024 paint striping project is going well with County Road number 1, McKinnon Road being the only roadway left to strip. There is still some minor handwork to be done, however, and this will be accomplished with CR1. The Energy Roads plans are being finalized, and we're still waiting on the AG's office on their signatures for the WEA fund match agreement. And Parks and Rec, the crew did a remarkable job with the trap shooting for the National High School Finals Rodeo. Over the 2-day event, there were approximately 17,700 clay pigeons thrown. And during these 3 days leading up to the final event, we had an additional 27,300 clays thrown for practice. In the middle of all this, they managed to be ready for 6 different large reservations at various parks and have the archery range ready for the Boys and Girls Club annual archery shoot. We installed an isolation valve at Arrowhead Park to better control a pond if we have a leak in and around the main well and valve system. Mr. Chairman, with that, I conclude mine and the Public Works report and would stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Just to piggyback off Parks and Rec, a few meetings ago, I brought to your attention that there was a constituent complaining about the shooting range and the condition of it. And Gene and his staff, I think Parks and Rec and Road and Bridge jumped right on that and got it turned around. I heard from that same constituent last night that it's the best they've ever seen it. And they're very proud of the improvements and for the quick action of that. So just thought I'd mention that, and certainly to Gene and his staff, if they're watching, for job well done and getting that turned back around. So thanks for that. Any questions for Commissioner Slaughter's report? If not, nice work, Commissioner. And Commissioner Toman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. On July 17th, I attended the airport board meeting. Jim Walmsley was reelected chairman, Dr. Pete Jensen, vice chairman, and Mac McBurnett as secretary treasurer. The airport board signed an MOU with the city of Rock Springs for law enforcement services and obtained a new lessee on one of their buildings with the Federal Aviation Administration for Snowcat storage space. Director Devin Brubaker would like to see a board retreat later this fall, and I asked to be included in that. Max Carmen Murray is a student doing an internship for high school credit with an EEE grant. The next meeting will be August 21st at 8 a.m. with an open house for officials at 4 p.m. and the public at 5 p.m. They will share the new master plan, and the terminal shall be officially moved to the modular tent for the duration of construction. So that should be a nice, a nice change until they get the terminal finished. I attended the Red Desert Parade, and I don't see how Taylor got third in that parade, and I didn't get anything. But I'm sure people are going to be voting for the vehicles that I had to borrow for the parade. I think Barbara Van Meter's new Chevy truck is probably going to get, a lot of votes. It was a hot red truck, and Jim Dean in the Green River Parade loaned me his Cobra Mustang, so it was getting a lot of waves in. So I'm a little bit worried about, people are going to be voting for the wrong thing. But anyway, we did have fun in the parade and threw out a lot of candy. July 17th, the Coalition of Local Governments. I think Commissioner Slaughter covered that. We have like what used to be a 4-item agenda. Now it's like a 4-page agenda with all of the federal issues that we face. We cover every one of those issues and meet with our lawyer to write the legally defensible, scientifically credible comments for the administrative record. So we're on record on everything that happens in this county with our federal partners. July 23rd, I attended the Young at Heart board meeting. They elected Rick Vandersloot as chairman, Kevin Maloney reelected as treasurer, and Kent Parenta was reelected as treasurer. Rusty Dixon was appointed to fill a vacancy on the board. Director Jamie Laredo is applying for a Daniels Fund grant in the amount of $50,000 to help offset the expense of raw food. There was some confusion regarding the role of liaison. So I explained, that just because I'm liaison doesn't mean that I have to only be the support system for that agency. My job is, I think our job as liaison for any of these entities is to be the connection to the committee, to the commission, and to report back to the commission. So I think there's some confusion about the liaison role. So, but I think hopefully it's been worked out. On July 26th, I listened in on a Teams meeting, a hearing for a motion for a partial summary judgment before Judge Lavery regarding the airport board's former terminal contractor regarding, they were arguing about the cause of termination. The new contractors are on site though, and construction is progressing on the terminal at the airport. July 26th, I attended the Red Desert Rodeo. It was a great rodeo until we got blown out of the stands by the usual annual Wyoming tornado that came roaring off of White Mountain. But some people stuck it out. I had friends from relatives from the country of Slovenia, 3 young people, and they went and got their jackets. They had to see the bull riding, so they stuck it out. August 2nd, the federal partners meeting. I think Commissioner Richards covered with that. We received a lot of updates from the various partners, the BLM. Again, as Field Manager Kimberly Foster has assured us that they seriously considered our concerns for that resource management plan, and we will find out at 10 o'clock tomorrow. So I hope it's not the same as a year ago when it got sprung on us that it was totally different than what we had anticipated. So it better not be that. The Dry Creek Tona draft environmental impact statement will be released August 9th this week probably. Jackalope Wind. Commissioner Taylor, I think you're the one that's going to work as a cooperator on that one. Has not scheduled any public meetings and scoping have been completed, but no cooperator meetings have been scheduled yet. Due to the expanded priority habitat in the core area for sage grouse, the proponents of that project are doing a turbine redesign for sage grouse. So that's kind of slowing up the progress on that one. The Rock Springs Resource Management Plan released tomorrow at 10 a.m. Then there will be, as Commissioner Richards stated, a 30-day protest period. The comment periods are over. It's legal protest now, and I'm sure we will be in court. Then the governor's 60-day consistency review, which John DeLeon, Eric, and Daniel, our coalition lawyer, prepared 1,400 pages of comments. A lot of that consistency review has already been covered, and we were fortunate enough 3 years ago to be able to get a plan in place dealing with federal natural resource issues. Sweetwater County Conservation Board Chair Tom Burse reported that additional engineering is being conducted on the Bitter Creek drop structure, and new sources of grant funding are being pursued through the Colorado River. There's funding available for projects on some of these water projects. Commissioner Richards reported that County Road number 1 McKinnon frost heaves are currently being repaired, so I won't go into detail on that. Craig Rude and Commissioner Richards reported on Project West, the industrial siting process. The right-of-way environmental assessment is in process, and hopefully the BLM resource management plan does not stop right-of-ways, which is what was proposed a year ago when they released that plan. Project West will be pursuing the permit to mine by the end of this year. I reported on the Colorado River Advisory Board meeting that I attended with the irrigators in Pinedale. Additional funding will be available for projects that place irrigation waters into more pipelines to avoid loss. Kelly Ingersoll, the Wyoming Business Council, reported on the State Comprehensive Economic Development Plan. The State Conference for Chamber of Commerce, Main Street, USA, and Economic Development will be in Rock Springs, October 7th to the 9th. Chad Bowling of Sheridan will be in charge of Wyoming Business Council broadband grants. Chris Floyd, State Parks and Recreation, announced that grants will be available for recreation through April 25th. The new trust fund for recreation will be providing funding. They're still working out the details of some of that funding for future projects through that trust fund. I did attend Wyoming's Big Show. And having a niece in the fair, it's always more exciting when you're personally involved with someone. She came home with a foot-high stack of rosettes and 4 more belt buckles to add to her collection of 31. For a 15-year-old, I don't know how she's going to carry all of these awards that she wins, but she sold the steer at the fair, and they had a great auction. I think the steer sale averaged $5 a pound. So the fair was great. Went to the concerts. Didn't go to Slaughter, though. I don't know, maybe Commissioner Slaughter attended that one.
I got a t-shirt.
Actually, my favorite was Restless Road on Thursday night. That was a good concert, the kind of the pre-concert, but they were the flower boxes. It just amazes me how beautiful the complex looks during the summer. I don't know how they do it. And I just want all of you to notice that it must have been Commissioner West. We have agreeable gray on the wall. Appropriate, don't you think? I'm sure that you picked
Sounds
that.
right. If nothing
You
else.
selected that, didn't you? That color? Just wanted to point that out. So thanks to Ricky and Jean for agreeable gray. Hopefully it works on us. The debates are tonight. I will be in the debate for the commissioner, as will Commissioner Taylor. I'll try not to be too hard on him. Tomorrow I will go to the BLM RMP meeting and give them hell if they don't give us what we want, right, commissioners? We're ready. They're not going to spring it on us like they did last year. Thursday, the Chamber of Commerce meet and greet. August 16th is the Green River Festival. So check with the Green River Chamber of Commerce. The River Festival is coming up Friday and Saturday, the 16th and the 17th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unless I can get into any more trouble, I will conclude my report.
Thanks for your report, Commissioner Tolman. Glad to see you had your coffee this morning. Any questions for Commissioner Tolman? Commissioner Jones?
No question.
Oh, no.
No questions, but a comment. I think it's appropriate to compliment the judges at the Red Desert Roundup Rodeo. I think their ability to judge accurately is second to none, and I hope to see them again at a later date.
I thought you were in the parade, not the rodeo.
The parade.
Any other comments? Well, nice work, commissioners. Good luck to the two of you tonight in your debate. Appreciate all the work. It's always interesting when there's 3 weeks between the meetings and the additional workload that comes with that. So keep up the good work. That's going to move us right along into tab C, the action and presentation items. This is where we amended the agenda to include the memorial resolution. So at that time, I'd like to read this. After reading it, I would ask everyone to join us in a moment of silence. So with that, we've got resolution 2408 CC02, a resolution to honor the memory of Richard Haskell, former sheriff of Sweetwater County. Whereas the members of the Sweetwater County Board of County Commissioners were greatly saddened to learn of the recent passing of former Sweetwater County Sheriff Richard Rich Haskell, a lifelong public servant. And whereas Rich Haskell served as the sheriff of Sweetwater County from January 1st, 2007 to January 4th, 2015, and served over 37 years in law enforcement. And whereas the Latin motto of the Marine Corps is Semper Fidelis, meaning always faithful. Rich Haskell faithfully served his country in the Marine Corps and in the Army National Guard, whereas Rich served his community as a youth sports referee and in countless other ways. Whereas Rich's outgoing personality, infectious smile, and love of family, sense of humor, memorable laugh, and spirit of true dedication to public service made him a beloved and respected figure throughout Sweetwater County. And now therefore be resolved by the Sweetwater County Board of County Commissioners that we honor the memory of Richard Haskell, former sheriff of Sweetwater County, and express our deepest condolences to Doris Haskell and the entire Haskell family on his passing. Be it further resolved that as a gesture of respect and recognition of Richard Haskell's lifelong service to Sweetwater County, that the state of Wyoming flag and all Sweetwater County facilities shall be lowered to half staff, sun up until sundown on the day of his interment or as otherwise directed by this board and as authorized by Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to the Haskell family. Commissioners, before we stand, I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 2408 CC02.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Please stand and join us for a moment of silence. Thanks, all. We recently had a former county commissioner and state legislator pass as well, and I just learned yesterday another former sheriff passed. We are preparing resolutions for both of those individuals, but we did not have the authorization from the governor's office in regards to a half-staff order, and so it didn't seem appropriate to approve those without that. So look for those at a later agenda, commissioners. Any comments on either of those before we break? Not, we are ahead of schedule here. Let's go ahead and take about a 13-minute break. We'll resume here at 10 a.m. for a CO2 sequestration discussion. Take a break. Call this meeting back to order. We are back from break. And where we left off under tab C in the action and presentation items was item number 2, which is the CO2 sequestration discussion. With us this morning is Mr. Trent Luce, and welcome, sir. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for having me. It's good that you have somebody here, let you know you got a hot mic on, which means you're completely dependent upon her having them off. Because we could have somebody in Nebraska hear you bragging, Commissioner Toman, about Go Big Red, because you said that a red vehicle was going to win you something earlier. So I just thought that was kind of handy. I do appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you about something that I didn't know that I would ever know anything about or spend so much time on. I'm going to give you a little history about myself so you know why I'm here and how I got to this point. I'm sixth generation man from the land. First, Luce came to Quincy, Illinois from Germany in 1832, and my family has been taking care of the same land since 1832. And I left Illinois in 1988. My wife and I raised 3 daughters, cattle, pigs, and horses in Sherman County, Nebraska. 24 years ago, I recognized, I should say we, because my wife and I, Kelly, she's 5th generation as well from farm. And we recognized that there were a lot of people talking about what's going on in the farm world. And they don't know where their food comes from. They think that it's manufactured in a grocery store. This was mid-1990s. And one day I said, you know, Kelly, we can continue to talk about the problems, or we can be a part of the solution. So 24 years ago, I walked into a gentleman's radio studio in Spearfish, South Dakota. I said, hi, my name is Trent Luce, 6th generation United States farmer, and I want my own radio show. And he laughed. And then I sat down. He said, oh, you're serious? I said, sir, I'm not leaving until we get a deal. 24 years later, you can hear my radio broadcast on 100 radio stations. I produce 2 TV shows, 5 radio shows a day, all of which I did this morning in a beautiful location just on the north side of Interstate 80 behind the Hampton Hotel with the beautiful buttes behind me, and giving a little credit to Sweetwater County. So, and in my lifetime, I share this because I got involved really taking on the animal rights community. I recognize that these folks are very well funded. They're going to continue to make up stories about how we take care of animals. And if somebody doesn't explain how we take care of these animals and why we have these animals, they're going to begin to believe who they hear most often. And so I've tried to find a way to share that story. That story is food and fuel production as a means of national security. And quite frankly, for 20 years, everybody just thought it was a nice slogan. Food and fuel as a means of national security. Something happened in 2020, 2021 that changed that. We had a period of time when COVID set in and people wouldn't show up to work in packing plants, and we euthanized 1 million pigs in a 3-month period of time, euthanized them in a way of just putting them in a grave and burying them because nobody would show up to process them, particularly at Smithfield Foods in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We had dairymen struggling because they were milking their cows and then forced to dump it because the system was in place that did not allow for milk that was going into food service to cross over and go into whole bottled gallon milk being jugged. It's like, how can we be this segmented? How can we be this rigid in our food system? And we're now at the point in time when we import more food than we produce or than we consume ourselves. We're a net food importer. We're the biggest ground beef importer in the world. And we have the best beef system that we could possibly ask for. And then we evolve into where we're at today, where everybody's trying to figure out, and Commissioner Richards even mentioned it, not in a negative way, but he mentioned it in something that we've all been faced with, and that is methane. I recognize I'm in Sweetwater County, Wyoming. The whole county has been built on the mineral resources and the coal in the early days, and feeding the train and getting that going and everything that's happened in Sweetwater County. And now all of a sudden, methane is one of those dangerous items that we've got to control. and curb and CO2 and sulfur oxide and nitrous oxide. They're all called greenhouse gases. Why do we have greenhouses? We have greenhouses so that we can take a plant, put it in a building and protect it, feed it the right amount of nutrition without worrying about the environment around us to produce the most optimum amount of plants. So then why is it that we perceive greenhouse gases as a bad thing? Because if you look at the 4 greenhouse gases that I identified, I'll start with nitrous oxide, which represents 78% of the Earth's atmosphere. We get lightning come along, breaks up the nitrous oxide into little molecules of nitrogen, and it feeds the plants. I can document and show you where the plants have a greater uptake of nitrates where there's more lightning. It's very clear. So nitrous oxide is involved in plant food. Sulfur oxide. I know that we're not in great corn and soybean country in Sweetwater County, but I've only met one farmer in the last 3 years that doesn't tell me that they are now putting sulfur oxide in their fertilizer mixes for their crops, which they never did in their lifetime before 2000. So why are we adding sulfur to the fertilizer mixes today when we didn't forever until 2000? The EPA put a sulfur limit on diesel because of the emissions. Sulfur is vital for soil health and plant growth. 2 of the 4 greenhouse gases that we're now talking about are actually responsible for soil health and plant growth. And then you have methane. Methane, obviously a big thing in any place that produces a lot of natural gas. I was in the Bakken the other day in North Dakota. I went to this brand new, Basin Electric has built this brand new, beautiful natural gas facility capturing methane that they were previously flaring, running it through this facility and generating the much needed electricity, because our demonization of coal is putting us in a vulnerable position when it comes to electricity. So it's a wonderful thing that we take this methane, we capture it instead of flaring it, run it through a facility, produce electricity and capture that. Except they told me that they're actually limited on a 30% capacity in this new facility by the EPA, and they have to meet the standards for methane emissions from their production. Do you know how many methane emissions are needed for meeting if you're flaring the gas off of the field? 0. But yet if you run it and produce electricity, you have to meet the methane emissions. Methane is 94% of what we call natural gas. What do we use natural gas to produce? Nitrogen, plant food. 3 of the 4 greenhouse gases are responsible for plant growth. We've demonized. And then the one that I come here to talk to you about, CO2. 5th grade science teaches that CO2 is responsible for photosynthesis. And the more CO2 that's available, the faster the plant growth, the less the water needs to produce the adequate yield. And CO2 is a wonderful thing. What's in the atmosphere, 430 parts per million, or 0.043% of the Earth's atmosphere. You go into that greenhouse that I was talking about earlier, they're averaging about 700 parts per million, twice of what we have in our Earth's atmosphere. And yet, our federal government says that we need to take CO2 and bury it. Why? Well, they tell us it's because fossil fuel extraction is causing emissions that are putting us in peril, causing climate change. So now the big reason that we want to capture CO2 is 2 things. We want to bury it 1.5 miles deep under Oliver and Mercer County, North Dakota. Now we're talking about burying it under 3 counties in southwest Wyoming, yours being one of them. But yet we also need it for oil extraction, enhanced oil extraction. And they tell me that if they do a 50% blend of CO2 with 50% natural gas, they can increase oil extraction by 15 to 18%. And that's a wonderful thing. Except, why are we burying CO2? Because fossil fuel extraction is causing climate change. And yet, we have a few companies tapping into a supply of CO2 to increase enhanced oil recovery. So which is it? We're burying it because it's dangerous to the atmosphere, or we're capturing it and burying it so that we can call it a commodity, or excuse me, a Fifth Amendment purpose and public use, and set this trend so that then they can come along and follow it with eminent domain. Because if it's not for public use, according to this document, the Fifth Amendment says it has to be a public use in order to use use eminent domain. So we buried just enough of it to classify it as no different than your electricity, so that we can use eminent domain to put pipelines wherever we want them. That's the game that's being played. How I got to this point: 3 years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who's been in the ethanol business for his entire life. He said, "Trent, you won't believe what we're going to do." I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "We're going to capture CO2, put it in a pipeline, and send it off to North Dakota and bury it." I said, "That's stupid, Dean. Why would you do that?" Because they're going to pay us too much money not to. The only reason, he said, they're going to pay us too much money not to. My friends in the coal business in North Dakota tell me that if they don't capture their CO2, like at Coal Creek Station in North Dakota, one of the biggest, best coal-fired power plants we have in terms of generating electricity, they are putting in, they're going to invest in carbon capture. They're going to compress the CO2, put it in a pipeline, and send it down the road and bury it. 1/3 of the energy that they produce in that coal-fired power plant but will be required in order to compress the CO2, to get it in a pipeline, to get it to 2,200 PSI and send it down the path 4 feet underground in a compressed CO2 pipeline. 1/3 of the electricity they produce will be required to compress that. 700,000 gallons of water a day will be required to get the CO2 from the steam form to 32 degrees, because at supercritical, it has to be at 32 degrees in order to flow to make it work. I went and fought in Illinois in this same situation. There's a shale area that's somewhat similar to your pore space in Sweetwater County. And they were going to take CO2 from Nebraska through a Navigator pipeline into Illinois, where in Illinois, they had some Summit pipelines that were coming out of Illinois, taking it to North Dakota to bury it. I'm like, are we just building pipelines to build pipelines, or what are we doing? I'll cut to the chase. What we're doing is that we're having the government pick winners and losers. And we're giving a few people a tremendous monopoly on a valuable commodity. That's what CO2 is. Just for history, in 2008, under George W. Bush, 45Q tax credits came into play. And notice that I said tax credits because that's a big part of this whole story. 45Q tax credits went into play. In 2020, during the Trump administration, and championed by Donald Trump, and sponsored by 2 Republican senators from North Dakota, the 45Q tax credits were able to be used by CO2 pipelines in what they have called the Use It Act in 2020. But the Use It Act for the CO2 would only allow for $50 per metric ton of tax credits, and that really wasn't worth it. Then the Inflation Reduction Act comes along, and the Inflation Reduction Act moves it from $50 a ton to $85 a metric ton, and it's a win for all. And now you have, I know that Sally got you access to the best document that I have found that's put together by the Pipeline Trust Safety Group Foundation. And they are showing us a map, and you have access to that map, that says that by 2050, they want 90,000 miles of CO2 pipeline. Lake Nyos in Cameroon in 1986. A natural disaster occurred where CO2 came through the lake, and that reaction caused a toxic effect that killed every single living thing, including animals and insects, in a 10-mile square radius. 1,400 people died. In Sarsha, Mississippi, just a couple of years ago, they had a CO2 pipe. We do have 5,100 miles of CO2 pipeline currently in existence, and that dates back to about 1998. In Sarsha, Mississippi, they had a ruptured pipeline, CO2 pipeline, and the plume effect can, depending on how the the volume, the pressure, the size of the pipe, the pressure. Most pipes are 8 to 24 inches. The pressure, if it's supercritical, it's above 1,000 PSI. If it's not supercritical, which is what the plan is coming in on the Trailblazer pipeline to your country, that's all different in terms of how it's being regulated. But the plume effect, the model shows that it has a kill zone of 3 miles. And I don't use that word kill zone lightly because I don't know how many people don't know the new pork, chicken, and turkey packing plants actually euthanize their animals in a CO2 chamber at 7% saturation in the atmosphere, and it will just put those animals to sleep. I made a video this past week with 3 experts that I've interviewed in the past 6 months about this particular topic. One of them is a volunteer fire department. I can get you, actually, Commissioner Slaughter has a copy of this video if you'd like to get it. One of them is a volunteer firefighter from Iowa who just point blank says that this is the most dangerous thing that's going to happen to his community. And he's telling everybody what's going on because they plan to go within 100 feet of his house and community members' houses of that town. There are places like Bismarck, North Dakota, where their initial plans were to take this pipeline directly under the city itself. The Iowa Utilities Board 2 months ago approved eminent domain to be used for CO2 pipelines through the state of Iowa with the condition that South Dakota and North Dakota also approve this plan because Iowa has nowhere to go with it if they can't take it to Oliver and Mercer counties, North Dakota. 4 insurance companies in the Dakotas have sent letters to their insurance people buying insurance from them, their customers, that if they have a CO2 pipeline on their property, they will no longer insure them. Cornell University in March of this year released a study that said we previously thought that water volatile at certain temperatures would be the reason that we're causing earthquakes. In fact, they now determined, volcanoes. They've now determined that the volcano is caused from CO2 coming through the Earth's crust and creating an interaction with the amount of water that's in there leading to the volcano. I testified in front of the Oklahoma Senate and House committees on Halloween last fall. They're very concerned because what they see happening in Oklahoma is a 1,000% increase of earthquake activity because of injecting fluids into the state. They know it's a problem. I've talked to people at Liberty Energy. They know it's a problem. They're trying to figure out how to deal with it. The fracking itself is not causing a problem. What's causing a problem is injecting liquid into earth. And you can see why I contacted you when I learned that you have 600,000 acres in Southwest Wyoming, that they want to inject CO2 1.5 miles deep in earth. This, by the way, has not been proven anywhere. Injecting CO2 into pore space, they think is a good idea. Hasn't actually been done anywhere. There's a small research project in Norway where they did it, and that gives them some comfort in thinking that they can do it. I have said publicly, and I will continue to say it, this is the most dangerous thing that's happened in my lifetime and puts our communities and our folks at risk. And it's the hill I'm willing to die on. I believe that much in stopping this project, this activity on CO2 pipelines, and particularly into what I call entombing it. They call it carbon sequestration. When you take CO2 from the atmosphere where God put it, and you put it 1.5 miles deep closer to somebody else that we don't want to be a part of, and you tell me that that's carbon sequestration, I tell you, no, that's entombment. Carbon sequestration is what farmers and ranchers and resource providers do. They use the CO2 to improve soil health, to improve plant growth, and then they continue the cycle and release it and come back. It's called the cycle of life. We're trying to disrupt the cycle of life. And that's why I'm trying to shed light on what's really going on this particular project. I have tremendous more, Chairman, but if there are questions, and I know that I'm about at the time you allotted for me,
Oh,
be happy to take any question.
thanks, Grant. We appreciate you making the trip and stopping in to see us and bringing your perspective and expertise on the subject. It's obviously a hot topic around here and there's lots of interest in it. There's been lots of discussion. Various uses as you've identified, we're hearing anything from synthetic fuels for the aeronautics to sequestering it and, these DAC units and so on and so forth. So I appreciate you, I guess, bringing forth your concerns and expertise on the subject and giving us another perspective to consider on it.
There are 17 commercial uses today for CO2. And I don't dismay those. We've been using those well, but we didn't put them in pipeline. We didn't put the material, the commodity in a pipeline, compress it to 2,200 pounds per square inch and send it by people's houses. We didn't do that. But there are 100 people that die each year in restaurants and bars because of CO2 containers of beer and soda that are not handled correctly. Nobody talks about that. And the other thing I want to make sure I point out that I mentioned when I started, the 45Q tax credit is a benefit to the Warren Buffetts of the world and the Bill Gates, not to the everyday working people of Sweetwater County, Wyoming. Because this is 100% tax credits that will be sold. And I also have I can provide you documentation that Summit Carbon Solutions, who has the most contracts, have been awarded. Their lobbyist received $1.5 million from Saudi Arabia in Des Moines, Iowa last November. And the Saudi Arabians seem to be very interested in this project, and there's no assurance that this project will not be sold once and if it was up and running. Saudi Arabia has made it very clear they want to be the energy leader and the fertilizer producer of the world. It just looks like it's all lined up right there for me.
Questions or feedback, commissioners? Commissioner Slaughter?
Just Trent, one thing that we talked about, if you could kind of explain a little bit about what takes place when CO2 mixes with water in a pipeline, and then what the effect is and how it becomes a deadly gas at that point in time.
Carbonic acid. So when CO2 comes in contact with water, and why it's especially on that video, Curtis Junt speaks about this issue. Curtis Junt is a friend of mine from North Dakota who has spent his entire lifetime engineering and designing natural gas pipelines. And he said no natural gas pipeline is structured to handle CO2. And there will be carbonic acid that forms as a result of that. And, one of the other commercial uses that they plan, Commissioner Slaughter, this is what this falls into, is sustainable aviation fuel. So they want to take the CO2 and move into sustainable aviation fuel, utilizing the ethanol plant to get that done. Well, if CO2 is a wonderful addition and creates an aviation fuel, that tells me it's fairly explosive. And every ethanol plant in my country, and I live in the land of ethanol plants, has been convinced that in order for them to survive, they have to capture their CO2 and sell it for this tax credit. And if they don't do that, they're not going to be in business. Same exact story that every coal producer will tell you. Except in 2007, 57% of our electricity came from coal, and today it's at 21%. We're killing coal with or without this CO2 capture. And we got to take a stand and say no more. But the other thing I want to get to, and it ties to what you're bringing up, is the fact that they tell us that sustainable aviation fuel from ethanol and CO2 is what's going to be the savior of ethanol. Except the USDA has said that in order to be part of the sustainable aviation fuel system, you as a farmer must plant 100% no-till. You must have 100% cover crop on your property, and you must have high efficiency fertilizer. I spent 3 hours one night looking on the USDA website for what high efficiency fertilizer was. Doesn't exist. They do not define what high efficiency fertilizer is. Even the ag groups are currently saying, American Soybean Association said last fall, no, excuse me, it was in April this year, they said less than 5% of the farmers qualify for what the standards are today to have ethanol go into sustainable aviation fuel. And the reason that Lake Nyos was such a big problem is what you're asking me there, is that combination of CO2 mixing with H2O to create that effect. And that's what happened at Lake Nyos. And I do not understand why I'm visiting with parish, or called actually police deputies in parishes in Louisiana, and they're wanting to put CO2 injection sites under lakes. Not even the federal government is that stupid, and I think they're pretty stupid.
Or next to Fontenelle Reservoir, within 2 miles.
Correct.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jones?
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the information on the pipelines. That was the same exact question I was going to ask. And interesting to hear your take on the tax credit information, because the tax credit game is very, very lucrative. And also a driving force behind wind energy. Doesn't necessarily mean the projects will make any money, but the tax credits are incredibly lucrative. So appreciate that little tidbit.
Warren Buffett bragged about getting 37 million in wind subsidies alone last year. Which, as a little side note, I don't follow the NFL, but they captured my attention in February of this year because they bragged about being 100% driven by sustainable electricity. We use no fossil fuel to generate electricity for 5 hours of the Super Bowl. So I went and looked at their grid. And then I started calling their PR person, Nevada Energy's PR person, every day for 2 weeks. Because 56% of the electricity generated by Nevada Energy, owned by Warren Buffett, is generated from natural gas. 31% generated from wind and solar combined. So I called with one simple question. How did you segregate the 31% of electricity from wind and solar from the 56% used from generated from natural gas, so that you could publicly confidently say that you use 100% energy, sustainable energy to fuel the Super Bowl? And they had a battery that added $2.20 per kilowatt hour to the electric cost of the Super Bowl, which would hold the electricity needed for 5 hours. The national average on electricity today is 17 cents a kilowatt hour. And the Super Bowl added a cost of $2.02 per kilowatt hour just because they wanted to say they had a battery that would hold 5 hours worth of electricity. Nobody in Sweetwater County, Wyoming, or Sherman County, Nebraska can handle those kind of electric costs.
Additional comments, commissioners? We got everyone scratching their head, if nothing else.
I'm very accessible. I do appreciate the opportunity. I'm very humbled that this body recognizes the intent of this Constitution in my pocket. And you showed that when you displayed respect for Sheriff Haskell. Because this Constitution says this room should be packed. And instead, we worry about what's happening in DC instead of where it's most important and closest to us, which is our local government. And the sheriff, the county commission are the two entities that we need to bring back to the forefront. And most of the problems that we quite frankly have would disappear. So the fact that you went out of your way to recognize a former sheriff of this great county says a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Trent. We certainly appreciate you reaching out, and especially for taking the time, like I said, to come out and educate us and give us another fresh perspective. And we got a lot to consider, but we like to listen to all viewpoints and, like you said, make the best decisions we can that affect the local people that are here. So this helps, and we were glad to invite you to come over.
I'll plant one seed upon departing. If they actually own the land, 70% of Sweetwater County, why wouldn't their name be the Bureau of Land Ownership instead of the Bureau of Land Management? Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Trent. Moving right along, and he kept the schedule too. So kudos to you on that. That's a tough task for most. There you go. Next item under tab C this morning is item number 3, which is a property tax sale and county treasurer update. With us this morning is County Treasurer Mark Cowan. Morning, Treasurer.
Good morning, Commissioners. That is going to be a tough act to follow. I'm not going to lie. I got my head scratching going on myself, but we're going to try and shift gears a little bit. As you can see, I'm dressed for a barbecue today for our employees. I wanted to personally thank Western Wyoming Beverages and Commerce Bank for supporting our barbecue this year for our employees. We appreciate them and all they do for us. I know this barbecue is not much, but it's a little token of gratitude for what they do for us each year. Moving on to the tax sale. That tax sale will occur on Thursday. As of this morning, we have 150 tax bills that are up for sale. This year, we started out with over 240 properties in the tax sale. We did some extensive advertising. We've contacted everybody that's on the tax sale list at least 3 times. They've all got a letter in the mail in an attempt to try and get them to pay their property taxes so that their properties didn't go into the tax sale process. It's been very educational for people on Facebook as they've reached out and tried to ask questions about the tax sale and the process there. But of course, as you know, those taxes are levied, and the schools and the cities in our community, they budget those taxes, and that's how they operate. And so we have to collect those taxes so that the services can be provided in our community. So by doing the tax sale, we can provide those payments to those entities, and they can continue working properly. I'm hoping that we can eliminate a few more of these properties off the tax sale before we get to the sale on Thursday. We're going to do a last push to get those done. But this morning we recognized that there were a few properties in this tax sale that probably shouldn't have been. There was a couple properties that veterans had applied for the veteran exemption in the past, and they received 100% exemption of their property taxes. And this year, as property taxes increased, the veterans exemption didn't cover the full amount. So there's a few of these properties that have, maybe $9 up to $30 that weren't covered by that veterans exemption. And so there were penalties, and there was also a $20 advertising fee that was added on to those. So this morning, I'd like to ask you to waive those penalties and advertising fee on the ones that we identify today. And I will personally pay the remaining balances on those veterans property tax bills so that we don't sell those in the tax sale. So I would like to ask that the commission consider waiving those penalties and interest and advertising fees, if you would.
Commissioners, any questions on that?
I do have a question for legal. How do we properly do that?
So that has been done in part in the past. And so I think it would be for you to make a motion to waive those fees and identify that there's good cause for waiving those particular fees. I'll double check and see if I see any particular language that we use in the past. I know it's just been done rarely. So I'll look real quick and see if I can identify that language.
We'll come back to that.
Fair enough. That sounds great. And then lastly, we have started issuing e-registration certificates to people in the county and across the state. This is very exciting. This year in the legislative session, we introduced House Bill 23, which was passed and signed by the governor, which allows us to issue an electronic vehicle registration certificate and also allows for a 30-day grace period for you to receive your stickers in the mail and place those on your vehicle. That's pretty exciting for us in Sweetwater County, especially because now you can get online, register your vehicle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and be legal as soon as you're done with that registration process. You'll receive a receipt that says that you've followed all the processes and that you have 30 days to place that registration sticker on your vehicle. So we would like to encourage everybody in Sweetwater County, the vast county that we have, to avoid the line coming in at the end of the month and waiting and registering your vehicle. Take care of that online, and then you don't have to come stand here and spend your day getting your registration done. You'll be legal as soon as you're done with that online registration process. We also just changed our credit card vendor in order to help facilitate a little bit more easier and less expensive online registration process. In the past, the fee was always 2.4%. If you paid via credit card or debit card, no matter what, you paid a 2.4% fee on top of whatever your registration was. Our new credit card vendor, if you use a debit card, it's a flat $3.95 fee. And so you don't have to pay that 2.4% fee on your registration. If you do use a credit card though, it is still 2.4%. And you can also pay by e-check, electronic check, which is just $1 fee. So between paying for the $1 to mail your stickers to you and the $1 e-check fee, for $2, you can register online and be legal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So pretty excited about that. Hopefully we can get the word out to help people not feel like they need to come stand in line to get their registrations. And with that, I will stand for questions if you have any.
Thanks, Treasurer Cowan. I appreciate that. Someone asked me the other day about the change and I didn't have the exact numbers, so now I have them. I appreciate that. I don't know, it's a percent, now it's a dollar amount. I can't remember how it all works, but as long as it's a debit, it's $3.95.
Yep.
Okay.
Debit card, $3.95. So I think for less than $5, if you use your debit card, I don't know if you can drive from very far to get to the courthouse and renew your registration. It's way easier and way cheaper to do it online.
I have a question.
Commissioner Tillman.
What about when you have to mail out the real plates next year? You're gonna have additional postage then?
There will be additional postage for the plates next year. We're still calculating what that is because the post office has just increased that, but I think we're at like $7.95 right now to mail out a plate.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Mark, what do you estimate the cost of forgiving the penalties and fees on the one specific to the veteran discounts?
Rough this morning, as I looked at them, I think it's going to be around $68.
Each or
Total.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm comfortable making the motion now that we waive penalties and advertising fees on property tax bills that qualified for the veterans exemption.
Do you have a motion to waive by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any input on that, John? You good?
Yeah, again, I would just identify that there is statutory good cause for that waiver.
Do we need to amend our motion for
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
You want to add that to your motion, Commissioner?
Yes.
And seconded by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks for
Thank-
coming over this morning and thanks for your efforts getting that together for us here at noon. The only complaint we really have is usually whichever commissioner gives the report first on the agenda buys lunch. And the timing of that is a little bit off in that you didn't ask any of us. You just assumed Commissioner Richards was okay with providing a free lunch today. So he gets off easy, but rightfully so. No, we appreciate your efforts there.
Last year, Commissioner Richards provided chips, and I didn't feel right asking him for a second year to do that. So this year, I decided to pony up and I will buy chips for the free lunch today.
Mind me next
So,
year.
there- There you go. I appreciate you, commissioners. I'll go out back and get ready for the barbecue. Appreciate all you do and appreciate all that the county employees do to keep our county running. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. Next item, Commissioners, is the 2024 mill levies. Assessor Davis sent us an email late yesterday afternoon after he finally got all the information needed for this. So at this time, I'll hand it over to Assessor Davis and welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did get, every year, it's kind of a struggle. I mean, we work with all the tax districts, the special districts that provide a levy, and these are all volunteers. They're doing the best they can to get us the information we require. We work hand in hand with the clerk's office, Destiny specifically, to try and get all the budgets from them. They have until the end of July statutorily to get their budget to us, and then we calculate the mill levy, which makes it pretty much impossible for me to get this mill levy report to you anytime soon, before this first meeting in August, when we traditionally do the mill levy approval. So what you've got in front of you, what I emailed out is basically the breakdown of each tax authority, what their budget amount is, what the mill levy calculation comes out to be. And just for your reference, this is a little skewed because of the minerals, the way minerals are done now, but this year we're going to bill $182 million in property taxes based on the certified value that we have. The year before was 200,400,000. So we are down about 18 million, 17.5 roughly. So, but just asking for your approval, and if I could get when they do get the signatures, if I could get a copy, that would be great, just to put in my file for the auditors. We'll get the report sent off to the State Board of Equalization, to the Department of Revenue, and then we will start the process of working on getting the tax roll done so the treasurer can actually create bills.
Thanks, Assessor Davis. Appreciate that. Any questions on the mill levies, commissioners? Yeah, and just to be clear on that, with the advertising of our agenda and getting the packet and everything, we obviously had this on the agenda, but because they had until the end of July to get these to Assessor Davis, we weren't able to get those included in the packet. So if any press wants a copy, that's certainly something we can provide. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2024 mill levies as presented, commissioners.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all the board members and stuff that really work hard trying to get this stuff. Some of them are new. They're all volunteers. They're doing the best they can with the deadline. Some of them don't have any idea what they got into, and they really are trying hard. So we work with them. We start making phone calls about 2 weeks before this process is supposed to be done, just to make sure that we got it as soon as we can. But everybody did work really hard trying to get this taken care of this year. So I appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you. Next item under tab C is item number 5. We've got the publication of name, position, base annual salary, and amount of overtime pay paid to each full-time county employee and each elected official as required by statute. And with us this morning is Clerk Lane. And good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Pursuant to Wyoming Statute 18-3-516, publication of name, position, actual wages, and amount of overtime paid to each full-time employee and each elected official must be published in our chosen publication, which for us is the Green River Star. So I'm presenting that to you, and if you have any questions in regards to this document.
Thanks, Clerk Lane. Any questions on the publication document, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Okay,
Thanks,
we'll
Clerk
get this
Lane.
published. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We are ahead of schedule. Does anyone need a break? Which is next on the agenda, or do you want to keep pushing through? Everyone good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, we're gonna move right along to item number 7 then, which is the approval of the federal fiscal year 2025 TANF CPI contract and subcontract. With us this morning is County Grants Manager Christina Marshall, who I assume is okay with going early. Good morning, Christina.
Good morning. Bring my smart water so I can be extra smart today.
We should try that.
My voice is sore from screaming at the France game last night. And they won. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I have 3 grant agenda items today for you. So this first one, you may recall, TANF CPI. Sweetwater County was awarded $50,000 in TANF CPI funding. That stands for Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Community Partnership Initiative. comes from the Wyoming Department of Family Services. This grant requires no cash match from the county, and the funding must be spent by the federal fiscal year 2025, which ends on September 30th. So this grant funding is designed to help needy families with children who are at 185% of the federal poverty level. Projects must address at least one of the following purposes: provide assistance so that children can be cared for in their own homes, reduce the dependency of needy parents by promoting job preparation, work, and marriage, prevent and reduce the incidence of out-of-wedlock pregnancies, and then finally, encourage the formation and maintenance of two-parent families. So the funding will be passed through to Climb Wyoming to assist low-income mother families, which meets those requirements. Climb participants enter the program making an average wage of $18,156 a year, and usually have approximately 2 children on average, and 60% of those children are under 5. Post-program graduates are employed and making an average annual wage of $35,004. Climb also embeds health services within its job training. On the current grant that we have for Climb, I just want to let you know, I did their quarterly report. They had 10 low-income mothers just complete recently between April and June, the CDL training through West Wyoming Community College. It included fire extinguisher training, CPR, first aid, and forklifts. Just an update on the program. So as I mentioned, we were awarded $50,000 that will be passed through to Climb, and they expect to have 30 new recruits this fiscal year, 30 enrollments, and then 35 graduates. And again, that includes this year's program. So some final notes. Services provided under this grant are limited to Wyoming residents, U.S. citizens, or legal permanent residents, households with at least one dependent child. I included this grant in the federal fiscal year grant projects budget. In your packet, I included those income eligibility guidelines so you can get an idea of how much money you can make to be a participant in the program. I also have the original contract between the county and the Wyoming Department of Family Services. And then of course, a subcontract. So we pass through compliance requirements to Climb Wyoming. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Christina. Very detailed as always. I think that's quite the return. They can go in making, 18,000 and go out making over double that. So what a great program.
I do have a question though. It wouldn't.
I guess I'm done. Go ahead, Commissioner Tillman.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Breath, you're done. Okay. Single fathers, they could qualify too, couldn't they, if they needed to?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tolman, Climb's program targets single mothers, but certainly a program that targets single fathers absolutely could apply to the county. And as a reminder to you all, I do publish requests for proposals. It's a public notice to encourage entities to submit an application test. Okay.
Any other questions or comments, commissioners?
Not me.
Well, yes, I think it's the greatest program that we support. One of the greatest. We get the most bang for our buck. We see the results. Thank you,
Well,
Mr.
definitely.
Chairman.
Definitely a good program. We appreciate your assistance with it, Christina. I know everyone talks about applying for grants and going and getting additional funding, but I don't think anyone truly understands what takes place on the back end of it and the different sub-recipient contracts and sub-agreements. And I mean, there's a lot of different reporting requirements. So we certainly appreciate the work you do to help us out with that. And I know they do too. And I would entertain a motion to approve and authorize the chairman to sign the federal fiscal year 2025 TANF CPI grant contract and subcontract with Climb Wyoming as presented.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Toman.
I would make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Toman to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous. Moving right along into item number 8 is the ratification and approval of the fiscal year 2025-2026 Community Prevention Grant Contract documents, and we'll hand it back to Christina.
Okay, this grant item number 2. Sweetwater County was awarded a 2-year community prevention grant from the Wyoming Department of Health, Public Health Division, in the amount of $468,807. There is no required cash match, and this grant expires on June 30th, 2026. The funding will be passed through to Southwest Counseling to carry out activities related to the grant. So the purpose of the prevention grant is to implement data-driven and evidence-based substance abuse and suicide prevention plans that positively impact substance abuse and mental health in our community. Southwest Counseling will use the grant to fund 2 community prevention specialists who, with the assistance of the Prevention Coalition, will address key prevention needs identified in Sweetwater County. Those are, 1, there's a high social availability of alcohol. Next, there's a favorable attitude towards substance abuse. 3rd, vaping prevalence among youth. And then finally, suicide, unfortunately. So in your packet, I provided a breakdown of the 2-year budget by personnel, equipment, operational supports, their website and social media, community presence, community coalitions and workforce development, community prevention service implementation, and then finally, Southwest Counseling collects a 10% indirect cost on all the expenses. Southwest Counseling is actually ineligible to apply for this grant. It is included in the county's audit and compliance report that I'm working on right now. It is heavy on monthly reporting, reimbursements, and performance reporting. Just so you know, there's a lot of detail involved with this grant. So, Mr. Chairman, you signed this grant contract and point of contact information form outside of a regularly scheduled meeting due to time constraints to return the documents back to the state and begin this grant back over a month ago on July 1st, 2024. So I appreciate your willingness to do that. So in your packet, you actually have the main grant contract with the state, and then of course the subrecipient agreement with Southwest Counseling. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this grant.
Thanks, Christina. Any questions, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to ratify the fiscal year 25-26 Community Prevention Grant Contract documents and approve and authorize the chairman to sign the subrecipient agreement with Southwest Counseling Service as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Moving right along to item number 9, we've got the approval to submit a fiscal year 2025 CMAQ grant application. And with us on this is Christina and Public Works Director Gene Legursky, along with Assistant Public Works Director Andy Hooten is listed. I'm sure he's out working today, but we'll hand it back to you, Christina.
Okay. Unlike the 2 prior items that were awards, this is requesting your permission to submit an application. So the Public Works Department is requesting permission to submit a fiscal year 2025 CMAQ grant application. So CMAQ stands for congestion. I'm thinking of you, Commissioner Richards, mitigation and air quality for $425,310 to the Wyoming Department of Transportation. It requires a 20% cash match and would need to be completed by December 31st, 2027. So you may recall that the purpose of CMAQ federal funding is to alleviate air quality issues created by energy development and other industrial activity in the vicinity. If approved, the funding will be used to apply magnesium chloride dust suppressant to various county roads. So in your packet, I'll refer to the budget summary. The Public Works Department anticipates applying the dust suppression application to 87 miles of county roads. The grant, again, is $348,248 with a required match of $87,062 for a total budget of $435,310. The estimated cost per mile is actually $5,000. And you may recall earlier this morning that Commissioner Slaughter reported on the current CMAQ project that's being implemented through our Public Works Department for fiscal year 24. Finally, the required cash match was included in the fiscal year 2025 grants project. I'll just remind you, sometimes this grant goes into 2 fiscal years, so it contributes to the cash carryover, but a lot of times that's out of the control of the Public Works Department. In your packet, I provided you the main map for this proposed project. And if you go past that map, there is an itemized list of the roadways. The Public Works Department did all the work on this application. Next, you have a resolution required by YDOT, then the CMAQ applicant information form. There's a lobbying certificate. And finally, there is a Title VI EEO assurances non-discrimination provisions, which was already signed by our Human Resources Director, but also requires the chairman to sign. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that's all I have to say, but if you have technical questions, our Public Works Director, Gene Legursky, is here.
Thanks, Christina. Any questions on the CMAQ application, Commissioners? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve and authorize the chairman to sign Resolution 2408 GR01 and related documents for the submission of a fiscal year 2025 CMAQ grant application as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Christina, while I have you here, later on in our agenda, we'll be addressing a resolution to authorize working with Uintah County on a SEDS comprehensive economic development study. Your idea. Thank you for that. But we're getting to the point, once we get that resolution done, we're going to have to pursue the EDA grant. Can I count on you to help me get through that process?
Mr. Mayor, Chairman and Commissioner Richards, of course, I'm interested as I'm familiar with it. I think it might be worthwhile to sit down so I can hear what's the latest on the project.
Yep.
As you're aware, with the audit, they start with the grants compliance. So right now I'm heavily involved with that, but it's a question of commissioner priorities. We had talked about also the opioid money, for example, finding projects for that, problematic gambling, but I would love to meet with you and discuss that.
All right. Thank you, Christina.
Okay.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate the detailed information. Sure makes us sift through it pretty quickly, and it's easy to follow. So we appreciate your efforts in putting all those together.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll move right along to item number 10, which is change order number 1 to the design contract with Van Vormen Frank Incorporated for the 2024 rooftop and air handler unit detention center replacement and upgrade project. With us this morning is Public Works Director Gene Legursky. And good morning, Gene.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Just one note, I was actually
know if it's a privilege or the pain. I went and visited my son up in the Seattle Tacoma area last week or this weekend. And going down the road, I noticed projects and various things. They had a CMAQ project that was up there right by the Tacoma's Narrows Bridge that had a sign on it. It was $373 million for their CMAQ project. So a little bit different in scope and scale than ours. But I thought
Wishful
that was
thinking.
interesting. Yes, yeah, exactly. So what you have before you is change order number 1 to the design contract with Van Born and Frank Incorporated for the 2024 RTU AHU Detention Center project. As you guys remember, a couple months ago, we signed a design contract with them. When they came down and did their site visit, they actually noticed that a couple air handling units and rooftop units are too close to the parapet wall, which when they were designed in 2003 was perfectly legal. Now it's not because of new building codes. So we need to do some guardrail safety enhancements and stuff like that. And then when they were here and we started going through some of the other calculations and things like that, we need to improve an air handling unit and a couple other RTUs for the makeup air. That will have to do some curb height adjustment, getting into the roof, stuff like that, where they need some analysis done to make sure that those all fit within the current cutouts and everything like that. So with that, if you have any questions on that, we can stand for questions.
Thanks, Gene. Questions on the change order, commissioners? Not, I entertain a motion to approve change order number 1 to the design contract with Van Vorm and Frank Incorporated in the amount of $14,980 and allow the chairman to sign all necessary documents.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Moving right along to item number 11, we've got a memorandum of understanding between LR Communications Incorporated and Sweetwater County regarding a lease within the Reliance Park. I'll hand it back to Gene.
If you guys are remember a couple meetings ago, we were approached by LR Communications about doing a temporary site in a vacant area of the Reliance Park. What this MOU does is codify all of that responsibilities between both parties. It is a 5-year agreement that automatic renews. John has inserted some language to be able to make that okay, because there's always the question of hand tying other boards and doing stuff like that. So there is out clauses in that. John has, or legal has reviewed that, and they're okay with it.
Very good. Thanks, Gene. Any questions on the presented MOU, commissioners?
One thing that I'd like in the motion is if you do condition this approval, and I believe I put it in my notes on all other required permits, conditional use permits and stuff from Sweetwater County and others, just in case there's anything else out there. I know Sweetwater County Planning and Zoning, or Land Use Department, is working with them right now on a conditional use permit that will be brought before you guys in September.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I move to approve the MOU with LR Communications Incorporated and allow the board to sign all necessary documents with the condition that LR Communications receives all appropriate permits and licenses.
Does that cover your need? Gene, or-
Yep.
You have a motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 12, we've got a communication site lease between Union Telephone Company and Sweetwater County. I'll hand it back to Gene.
So what this is a project that we've been working on for about 4 years with Union Telephone Company. And what it is for space upon the top of the Green River Courthouse. If you guys look from afar when you're driving up, you'll see some telecommunication facilities up there. They need to upgrade that and do some other things based on new regulations from the federal government to be able to have non-Chinese related parts and other parts on their telecommunication equipment. So as they're doing that, they're going to upgrade the equipment, and we took that opportunity to upgrade the lease that has been under a long time. So we got a current lease with them to be ratified by you guys, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
I do that a lot up here.
Well, you talk a whole lot more than I do though. So it's pretty bad when I lost it in about 30 seconds.
Any questions on the site lease, commissioners? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the site lease between Union Telephone Company and Sweetwater County, conditioned on Union Telephone Company receiving all of their own, or excuse me, all of their other governmental permits, and allow the chairman to sign all necessary documentation.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous.
I did have a question though. Was the same amount of the lease, the dollar amount the same?
No, it's actually increased.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Moving right along to item number 13, we've got an MOU regarding the designation and enrollment of routes and trails into the state ORV Trails Program. And we'll hand it back to Gene.
Back in April, this board approved Resolution 2404-PW01, designated all the county roads as eligible for enrollment within the Division of State Parks Trail Program. This is the MOU regarding this designation, and we will send it back to the state Trails Program to be enrolled in their program and continue on with the process.
Very good. Any questions on this MOU, commissioners? Commissioner Jones?
Mr. Chairman, no questions, but I just want to thank everybody for all the time on this. It's taken a while, but I think we took our time and did it right. And I think it'll be a real benefit to Sweetwater County. And so I appreciate all the efforts and keeping the push forward through on this.
I do have a question.
Commissioner Tillman?
Who's going to pay for the additional signage? You will do signage for speed limits and that for the off-road vehicles
There
or?
won't be any signage associated with the off-road vehicles. They're currently, if they're on a county road, it's by state statute what that signage is. And they'll have to obey all traffic signs that are currently on there. So you won't see, typically when they have an off trail or something like that, you'll see the smaller signs. Because this is a county road, we have to do the manual and uniform traffic control devices for vehicles. So there'll be the bigger signs and everything like that on there.
Any other questions or comments on the MOU? Commissioner Jones, you want the honor on this one?
Would get my glasses on so I can read. Let's see, where are we? Move to approve the memorandum of understanding between Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources, Division of State Parks, Historic Sites and Trails in the County of Sweetwater County.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jones to approve the MOU as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Gene, appreciate it. Next up is item number 14. We've got a ratification for the approval of the vendor proposal for the county network switch project. And with us this morning is IT Director Tim Knight. Morning, Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Before you, we had a project approved in the capital budget for $240,000 to replace the network switches, mostly here in Green River, that are outdated. The time between the budget being approved and the end of the month or the next meeting was pretty short, but we did get some quotes. The cost came in initially at $274,410.99, and then we put a little pressure on them and they realized that they could take advantage of some end of year opportunities to try to get this done by the end of July. And so sent out an email for you to look at that. The price came in at $215,631.74, which is a $58,000 savings over the first quote and a $24,000 savings over from the budget. So what I'm asking is to approve A&M, who is a vendor on the state contract, as the selected vendor, or to ratify what we did through email for the Cisco Switch project for $215,631.74. Plus, I'd like to add any shipping cost in there so we don't have any issues with that approval. and just ratify that action.
Mr. Chairman,
Thanks, Tim. Commissioner Tillman.
as IT liaison, I would be proud to make that motion.
We do have a motion to ratify and approve A&M as the selected vendor for the Cisco Switch project in the amount of $215,000, 631.74 plus any shipping by Commissioner Tillman. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Yeah, sometimes difficult with the timing and the deadlines, but we certainly appreciate getting that pushed through for the savings and happy to do that ahead of time to save the taxpayers money. So thanks for that, Tim.
Okay.
Do you have a motion and a second on the table? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Item number 15 is a motion to ratify opting in to the Kroger opioid settlement. And this is prepared, it says by me, but I must give credit to our deputy civil attorney over there, Mr. De Leon. John, you have anything you want to add on that?
This is just ratifying opting into the grocery chain Kroger, their national opioid settlement. You've ratified these and you've opted into other distributors and other pharmaceuticals. So this is just doing the same thing for this particular grocery chain. They've got they reached settlement for approximately $1.2 billion that they'll distribute to local governments. As you know, there are about 33 local governments in Wyoming that participated, mostly counties and a few cities. And through an agreement with the state, an MOU with the state, each county or each local government receives a certain percentage of what comes in. I believe it's 65-35 in terms of the state and the local government split. And then each individual local government receives an exact percentage of those funds, and Sweetwater County receives about, looks like 7.64%. So the amount that will be received will start coming in. It's an 11-year payment period. So each one of those settlements has different payment periods. One could be 8, and this one happens to be 11 years. So this is just ratifying it's due August 12th, but the paperwork's been done. They've opted in, and with your permission, ratifying that, then the county will wait to receive those funds.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that additional information. Any questions on this settlement, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to ratify opting in to the Kroger opioid settlement as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous. We are 45 minutes ahead of schedule, which is nice for one, especially on a employee appreciation luncheon barbecue day. So with that, we have about 2 hours here to enjoy some time mingling on Commissioner Richards's free lunch dime. And we will resume back here at 1:15. Gonna break for lunch.
I'm having some issues with Brent because he keeps erasing.